Hello everyone and welcome back to another week's episode of UC San Diego Creative STEM10 Plus series. My name is Ronny Vasquez and today we're going to be talking about ocean acidification. This corresponds to the science of marine sciences, and before we start, I just want to thank my friends of Elementary Institute of Science for providing our handout and the guide for today. So let's go ahead and explain a little bit about the objectives of this experiment. First, I want you to understand what is ocean acidification. Second, I want you to understand that greenhouse effect it's a problem that we're currently living on, and how CO2 concentrations affects organisms that have shells made of calcium. So before we start, I want to ask you three questions. First, what is ocean acidification? I'm just gonna let you think about that for a minute. Well, ocean acidification is when the pH of the water decreases. If you haven't watched our video of bases and acids, I would recommend you to go ahead and watch it. It's going to give you a good understanding of the pH scale. The pH scale is based on numbers. The lower you go is the more acidic it gets the liquid or the water, and the higher you go, it gets basic. 7 being the neutral number. So that's what happens when the ocean gets acidic, the pH decreases. Now the second question that I want to ask you, I want you to tell me what are some examples of marine organisms that have shells. You guys right, we have oysters, we have clams, we have lobsters, crabs, and many others. And the third question that I want to ask you is, why do you think, or for what do you think they use their shell for? That's right, they use their shell for protection and for different environmental events. So what happens if they don't have their shells? Well, they get affected and they might be eaten pretty fast, or they might die pretty soon. So now let's go ahead and talk about the materials that we're going to be using today. First, we're going to be having vinegar as our source of acid. We're going to be having a transparent cup, as I have right here, and we're also going to be using some eggs. So let's go ahead and start our experiment. I want you to think about the time that this experiment is going to take. It's going to take about 1 to 2 to 3 days. It depends on how fast and how you want to let your egg settle in our solution. So just think about that when we're doing it, okay? So first, I'm going to grab the vinegar right here, and I'm going to put it in the cup right there. And second, I'm going to grab the egg, and I'm going to put it into the cup with vinegar. Now I'm gonna let it sit for about 1 or 2 days. Ideally it will be 3, but let's do it 1 to 2 days, and then I'll be back and checking with you after our solution of the egg and vinegar is settled. Welcome back. After 2 days of our preparation, we are now gonna look at the results. First, I have an egg, and if you can see here, I have different bubbles form around. That means that a chemical process was happening inside our solution, and I took the liberty to make a second sample, but I put some coloring, the red coloring, to see how the egg absorbed this solution. So let's go ahead and start with our first egg that we have right here. I'm just gonna take it out, as you can see right now, and I'm gonna wash it a little bit so that you guys can notice the difference in a bit. Okay. So here it is. Now I'm gonna compare this egg to the previous one that we had before starting the experiment. As you can see here, this egg is bigger. It means that it absorbed a lot more vinegar and water at the same time. And as you can see, it's very squishy. It's squishy, and that means that it absorbed the acidic solution, meaning that it just became, in one, the shell disappeared, and the acid worked perfectly. Excellent. Now I want you to take a look at the 3 stages of the egg. Here we have the one that we started with. The second one is the one that we put in vinegar. And then these two, I want you to pay attention to these two, okay? So first, we have the egg that I had in the red solution. As you can see here, the skin, the shell, actually is different now. It looks like a skin. And if you can see in the inside and in the outside, it kind of looks elastic. It kind of is actually. And then we look at this egg. I actually cracked it purposely so that you can see the difference. This one is a lot harder than that one, so that's why it looks like that. It doesn't even look like a skin as this one does. So just take a look at this, and we'll talk about how that happened. Excellent. Let's now talk about the process that the egg went through in order to get to that shape. So like in the ocean, it absorbs a lot of carbon dioxide, which makes it more acidic. In this case, the egg absorbs a lot more our acid, which is our vinegar, acting as the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. What happens when a lot of carbon dioxide gets into the water? Well, it's called ocean acidification, as we mentioned before. And the rates at which humans are producing CO2 is just devastating to the oceans and the organisms that live there. So I encourage you to watch all the videos that we have in the handout at the end of it, so that you can get informed on how we can create ways to reduce our carbon dioxide production and the greenhouse effect that we have in the planet. So thank you very much for watching our lesson this week. I'll see you next week with another lesson. Bye.